I didn't have many signals, but then my sister was leaving. She was in Chicago. I was in Toronto. Yogi Bhajan called me. He said, "Good day, your sister's freaking out. Go down there and don't worry about the speed limit. Go down there and get her back in the Dharma, put her mind at ease and get this nonsense taken care of. Do it now. Go." So, of course, hardly packing a bag. "Yes, sir." I go down to speeding the whole way. I go down there, talk to my sister, and she says, you know, that he's been having sex with everybody in the Secretariat. I said, "No, come on." "Yeah." I said, "Well, how do you know?" She says, "Why don't you call Premka?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean call Premka? I've got her number right here." So I said, "Well, might as well." So I called Premka, and, we'd known each other all the years. She had left, I think, a year and a half earlier, or 2 years, whatever it was.
Okay.
And I called her up and I said, "Premka, is it true?" She says, "Yes."
Wow. Whoa.
That was it. The whole thing. But it felt like Santa Claus coming down the chimney and waking my kids. Shaken, obviously, and it was over. I couldn't any longer be the director of the ashram. Right. But I thought everyone in the ashram would say, "Oh, he slept with Premka, or he did this, or he did that." Right. And they would go, "Oh, what are we going to do now?" With all as an ashram, we'd figure out what we're going to do. And then the drug bust happened with Gurjot Singh.
That's on the East Coast.
Very soon after that.
In the Virginia ashrams.
Yeah, Herndon, Virginia.
Okay.
So the DA comes in and they bust the ashram. And Gurjot was obviously involved in some pretty serious drug and arms smuggling. And when that happened so close to my finding out about Yogi Bhajan, I thought it came over. We're all going to have to look at, what do we do now? The teacher's not who we thought he was. Mm-hmm. And so I started talking to people in the ashram, and it was like, he didn't do it. Who says Gurjot is not innocent? Same thing with Trump's base. And then Yogi Bhajan said,
immediate denial, like, no way, he didn't.
Totally. Not only denial, but you've fallen from grace yourself in suggesting it. And all I was saying, we got to be able to talk about this. Now, he slept with all these women or not. The question is, we can't talk about it.
You can't say it out loud.
You can't say it out loud. If you do, you get...
Not your neighbor, not your friend, not your wife, not to anyone. You can't say anything.
Yeah. And that was also part of Yogi Bhajan's capacity. He, again, like Trump, he would tell all these lies about the people who were leaving, particularly the people who had been heads of ashrams. He had to come up with a story. So he'd basically say that we had fallen from grace. And, the cockroach thing.
That you're going to turn
a lot of lives to go through.
That you're going to turn into a cockroach?
Yeah. And so I was expecting that we'd have, and I was on calls to council and all that. I thought we'd get to calls to council and we'd be able to talk about all this. So instead of that, Yogi Bhajan sent a Punjabi up to Toronto, 5 men, all my peers, to try to get me back into seeing the truth of
back from lost from grace.
Yeah. And I was going, what the heck are you talking about? Why are you coming to see me? I didn't have a drug bust. I wasn't. Yeah. So that was a rough time. And then Yogi Bhajan, I went one time to see him again. It wasn't the last time, but the second last time I saw him. And he knew that I knew. And he took myself and my now ex-wife, Kirteshkar, aside into a room. We went down to Ohio. And he said, he knew I knew. And he said, I just wondered, I got to use the accent a little bit, but he said, "Good Tej, I just want you to know in this organization, everybody loves me so much. They're crazy with how much they love me. And if anybody talks out against me, I don't know what they would do. And so many of them have guns.
Whoa.
I went home. I got home after that. I sat down and I said, okay, God, internal self, whatever, you tell me what to do because this is serious stuff. And so internally, this is what I said, okay, pick up a pen. I picked up a pen and then I wrote this thing. Like a cat, be still until one pointedness directs the pounce. Patience pays. Hold the brush high until the heart moves the hand. This is art. Judge not at all until the facts speak first. Act only then. This is all written. So I knew to get still.
Wow.
So it took me a while. I got there was a room in the ashram and a house he sold. And I had the whole thing up there and I was able to and I had a really interesting situation. At the same time that I found out, I got introduced to a MD in Toronto who was teaching group dynamics.
Mm.
And he was, his medical practice was if you had something wrong with you, show up in circle. You just sit in circle all day and find out what's going on many different levels.
Oh, cool.
So I started studying dynamics, and I had a way of being able to work with all of these emotions that were coming up.
Mm.
The betrayal and my own closeted, deep terror, really.
Yeah.
That had not ever seen the light of day. And that was, again, part of 3HO. 3HO, there was make sure you don't feel anything.
That's right.
Just rise above it. And there's no embodiment. There's no self-regulation of the nervous system. It was stimulate the nervous system.
Only stimulation.
Only stimulate.
Mm-hmm.
He rarely spoke of love.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're still at the ashram at this time, this little room, trying to feel yourself, but you're still like realizing, wow.
Yeah, and I knew not to spread it. Spread it meaning I knew not to disturb the hornet's nest in terms of the whole thing. Now, I didn't do it out of fear of being shot by one of the people who so love him. It wasn't I was afraid for my life. It's that I saw this is a system that's much bigger than I had thought. And it was very similar to, fortunately, I did have the whole experience